You are not a separate person living in a hostile universe. You are the universe, pretending to be a separate person. This is not just a riddle, not just a clever turn of phrase. It is the foundation of Alan Watts' great invitation, to live as though the world is not something outside of you, but something arising through you. Like a tree growing leaves, like an ocean forming waves, life is expressing itself as you. And yet, look at the way we live. Always chasing, always anxious, always holding our breath as if tomorrow will finally bring the arrival of happiness. We speak of getting somewhere, of winning life, of being in control. But behind those words hides a quiet desperation, the haunting fear that perhaps life is slipping through our fingers no matter how tightly we grasp. Alan Watts appeared in the 20th century like a voice from another dimension, half philosopher, half poet, half mischievous Zen trickster. He stood as a bridge between East and West, translating the wisdom of Taoism, Buddhism, and Hinduism into the modern tongue of psychology and everyday struggle. He laughed at our seriousness. He exposed our illusions. He dared to say that our frantic need for control was not strength, but bondage. Why does his philosophy matter now, more than ever? Because we live in an age of relentless pressure. Anxiety is the background noise of our lives. We compare ourselves, measure ourselves, punish ourselves. We scroll endlessly, searching for meaning in fragments of other people's lives. We mistake business for purpose, control for safety. And yet, beneath it all, we remain unsatisfied, hungry for a deeper way of being. Watts' answer was not another self-help technique, not another 10-step program for success. It was something far more radical, far more liberating. Let go, trust the dance, play with existence. He reminded us that life is not a problem to solve, but a song to sing, a game to play, a mystery to enjoy. If you dare to see through the illusion of separateness, you discover profound courage, the courage to act as if everything always works out for you. Not because you will never face loss or pain, but because even those moments belong to the greater unfolding, the vast intelligence of the universe moving through your very breath. This is the art of trusting life. And as we explore Alan Watts' philosophy together, you may find yourself lighter, freer, and closer to the truth you've always known but somehow forgotten, that you are not here as a stranger. You are life itself, endlessly becoming. Keynote titles. 1. The Illusion of Control. Why our desperate grip on life only creates more suffering, and how freedom begins the moment we learn to let go. 2. You are the universe in disguise, revealing the radical truth that we are not isolated egos, but the very cosmos playing at being human. 3. The wisdom of insecurity, how embracing uncertainty transforms fear into freedom and anxiety into trust. 4. The dance of life. Why existence is not a journey with a destination, but a rhythm to be enjoyed here and now. 5. Ego, the greatest trick. Unmasking the false self that separates us from life, and rediscovering the playfulness of our true nature. 6. Play, flow, and letting go. Living with spontaneity, creativity, and wonder, remembering that the point of life is not to win, but to dance. The illusion of control. We live in an age obsessed with control. Control over our bodies, our careers, our reputations, even our happiness. We plan every step, track every metric, schedule every moment. And yet, in the quiet hours of the night, when the noise of the day fades, many of us feel it. The trembling realization that despite all our effort, the universe does not bend to our will. You try to control your future, yet one phone call can change everything. You try to control your body, yet it ages without asking permission. You try to control your emotions, but the heart takes in ways the mind cannot command. Control, in the end, is like trying to hold water in a clenched fist. The tighter you grip, the faster it escapes. Alan Watts often laughed at this human predicament. He saw how we twist ourselves into knots of worry, always preparing for the future, always rehearsing our lives instead of living them. The desire for security, he said, is an attempt to make the moment eternal. But life is change. And this is the first secret. Security is an illusion. To understand this, imagine a man standing on the edge of the ocean, commanding the waves to stop. He yells at the tide, demands obedience, but the sea pays him no mind. Hours pass, the tide rises, and eventually the man collapses in despair. The waves do not listen because they are not separate from him. The tide is not an enemy to be conquered. It is a rhythm of existence itself. And yet, how different are we? When life does not go according to plan, we resist, we panic, we tighten our grip. We live as though the world owes us certainty. But Alan Watts reminded us that the very essence of being alive is uncertainty. You cannot predict the next moment with absolute clarity, and that is not a flaw in the system. It is a beauty of it. Consider this. If everything was certain, if the script of your life were written from beginning to end, would you still want to play it out? If you knew every twist, every turn, every heartbreak, and every joy, life would lose its spark. It would no longer be an adventure but a dull rerun. The very thing we fear, uncertainty, is also the source of all wonder. Watts often used the metaphor of music. You don't listen to a symphony in order to hear the final note. You don't dance in order to arrive at one particular step. The meaning is not at the end, it's in the unfolding, in the play. But when we cling to control, we turn life into a desperate rush toward a destination that never comes. We miss the music. We miss the dance. There's a Zen saying, "Let go or be dragged." And isn't that exactly what happens when we resist change? We are dragged by time, by aging, by loss, by the impermanence of everything we love. Control promises safety, but what it delivers is suffering, because life was never designed to be controlled. Does this mean we should do nothing? No. Alan Watts never said to abandon life, to drift aimlessly, or to reject responsibility. He pointed towards something subtler, a shift in our attitude, from control to trust. Just as a sailor cannot control the wind, but can learn to sail with it, we too can learn to move with the currents of life instead of fighting them. When you let go of control, something astonishing happens. Anxiety softens. Creativity blooms. Possibilities appear where once there was only fear. Think of the greatest moments of your life, the times you laughed until your ribs hurt, the times you fell in love, the times you were lost in creativity. None of those moments were scripted. None were controlled. They came unbidden, as gifts arising from the flow of life itself. And here lies a paradox. The moment you stop trying to control everything is a moment you begin to truly participate in life. You discover resilience not by tightening your grip, but by opening your hands. You find strength not in resistance, but in surrender. You find freedom not in mastery over life, but in harmony with it. You are the universe in disguise. There is a moment, usually in childhood, when you first look up at the night sky and feel small. The stars stretch endlessly, galaxies shimmer beyond imagination, and you whisper to yourself, "What am I compared to all this?" From then on, many of us carry the belief that we are tiny fragments of reality, isolated specks of dust floating in a vast and indifferent cosmos. It is a belief that breeds loneliness. It makes life feel like a battle, as though you are a stranger lost in a foreign land, trying to survive against overwhelming odds. Alan Watts challenged this belief with a mischievous smile. He said, "You are something the whole universe is doing, in the same way that a wave is something the whole ocean is doing." And suddenly, with that one sentence, the loneliness of existence begins to dissolve. Because if the wave belongs to the ocean, then you belong to the cosmos. You are not here by accident. You are the unfolding of life itself. Think about it. Did you decide to be born? Did you design the shape of your face, the sound of your laughter, the beating of your heart? Did you sit down one day and instruct your lungs how to breathe, your blood how to flow, your mind how to think? No. These things are happening through you, not because of you. Life is expressing itself as you. And this realization changes everything. Because if you are the universe in disguise, then you are not a stranger here. You are at home, as much as the stars, the rivers, the mountains, and the trees are at home. The same energy that explodes in supernovas, that blossoms in flowers, that migrates in birds, that same energy is a spark behind your eyes. Watts often invited people to imagine the universe playing hide-and-seek with itself. In this cosmic game, the universe hides in the form of countless beings, humans, animals, plants, each one temporarily forgetting its true nature, just so it can rediscover itself in you. What would you do, he asked, if you could dream any dream you wanted every night? Eventually, you would dream being what you are now. It sounds playful, almost childlike. But isn't that the point? To see existence not as a cold machine, but as a great play, a cosmic drama in which you are both actor and audience. You are not a puppet tossed about by chance. You are the playwright, disguised as a character, immersed in the story of yourself. Of course, the ego resists this. The ego wants to be special, separate, in control. It wants to believe that I am a self-made being carving out an existence against the odds. But what's pulled back the curtain? The ego is a trick, a mask worn by the universe to play the part of you. And yet, once you see through this illusion, life doesn't become meaningless. It becomes more intimate, more alive. The tree outside your window is no longer just a tree. It is your relative, your kin, the same energy unfolding in a different shape. The laughter of a child, the silence of the mountains, even the chaos of City Street. All of it is a universe playing its infinite symphony. This realization has practical power, because when you stop seeing yourself as separate, you stop fighting life. The fear of being not enough begins to dissolve. The loneliness of isolation softens. You don't need to prove your worth to the universe, because you are the universe. You don't need to control everything, because you are already carried by the larger whole. Imagine walking into a forest. Do you look at one tree and say it should be taller, another and say it should be greener? Do you scold the river for flowing too fast or too slow? No, you accept them as they are, because they belong to the pattern. And if you can see yourself in the same way, life takes on profound gentleness. You belong, exactly as you are. Watts once said, you are the aperture through which the universe is looking at itself. That means your eyes are not merely looking at the stars. They are the stars gazing back. Your consciousness is not a byproduct of matter. It is matter waking up to itself. You are not in the universe. You are the universe, expressing itself for a little while as you. And so, the invitation is this: stop pretending to be so small. Stop carrying the burden of separation. Act as if the universe is not something out there, but something alive within you. When you trust this, even the challenges of life become part of the game. Even pain is a transformation. Even loss is a reminder of the ever-changing dance. The wave does not mourn when it falls back into the ocean, because it knows it was never separate to begin with. And in the same way, when you remember that you are the universe in disguise, death itself ceases to be an enemy. It becomes a return, a homecoming. So look again at the night sky. Feel its vastness. But this time, know that what you are seeing is not foreign. Those stars are not distant strangers. They are your ancestors, your origin, your reflection. You are not small. You are not alone. You are the universe, playing the beautiful game of being you. The wisdom of insecurity. There is a peculiar kind of madness woven into modern life. We are always chasing a future that never arrives. We work not to live, but to secure tomorrow. We save, we plan, we strategize, forever leaning forward into a horizon that keeps retreating as we approach. And what is the result? Anxiety, a constant background hum of unease, as if at any moment the fragile scaffolding of our lives might collapse. We live suspended between regret and worry, rarely resting in the only place that has ever truly existed. Now, Alan Watts called this the wisdom of insecurity. At first, the phrase sounds strange. How can insecurity be wisdom? Isn't the whole point of life to eliminate insecurity, to create certainty, to finally arrive at safety? But Watts, like the mystics of old, saw through this illusion. He reminded us that the search for absolute security is doomed, because the very nature of life is change. Everything you know is passing away, moment by moment. Your body, your thoughts, your possessions, your relationships, none of them stand still. To seek permanence in a world of flow is like building a castle on the surface of a river. No matter how high the walls, the current will carry it away. And here is the paradox. The more you resist insecurity, the more insecure you become. The tighter you try to hold the present, the faster it slips through your hands. The more you demand guarantees, the more anxious you grow when life refuses to provide them. Consider the act of walking across a tightrope. If you freeze, if you stiffen, if you demand absolute stability, you will fall. But if you relax, if you sway with a rope, if you trust the rhythm, you find balance not by resisting movement, but by moving with it. Life is the same. This is why Watts said, to have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, You don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float. Insecurity is not a flaw. It is the pulse of life itself. The fact that tomorrow is uncertain is not a threat. It is the very reason life is worth living. Imagine if everything were known in advance, if the script of your existence were carved in stone. Would you still wake each morning with anticipation? Would you laugh? Would you fall in love? The surprise, the spontaneity, the risk, that is what makes a game beautiful. But here's the trap. Society teaches us the opposite. From childhood, we are told to prepare, to predict, to manage risk. We build careers, savings accounts, insurance policies, and backup plans, not because these things are wrong, but because we mistake them for ultimate safety. And yet, beneath all of it, the ground is still moving. We are still mortal, still fragile, still uncertain. The wisdom of insecurity is the courage to stop running from this fact and instead to embrace it. To see insecurity not as the enemy of peace, but as a doorway to it. Because when you stop demanding certainty, you discover something extraordinary. Presence. Presence is what happens when the mind stops rushing into tomorrow or dragging itself through yesterday. Presence is a taste of coffee on your tongue, the sound of rain against the window, the laughter of a friend. Presence is not found in planning or in memory. It is always immediate, always here. And in presence, insecurity is no longer frightening. It becomes aliveness. Look at a child playing in a field. She is not worrying about tomorrow, nor clinging to yesterday. She is absorbed in the game, in the moment, in the pure act of being. And isn't that what we secretly long for? To return to that innocence, that freedom from the heavy burden of control? Alan Watts invited us to reclaim this. He reminded us that real faith is not believing in something far away. It is trusting this moment, however insecure, however fleeting. It is living with open hands, willing to receive whatever the current of life brings. And when you live this way, something astonishing happens. Anxiety begins to soften. Fear loses its grip. You realize that insecurity is not the end of safety. It is a beginning of freedom. Because freedom is not the absence of risk. It is a willingness to dance with it. So the wisdom of insecurity is this: to stop asking life for guarantees and instead to say yes to the unknown. To discover that the only true security is found not in clinging, but in letting go. The river flows, whether you resist or not. The waves rise and fall, whether you cling to the shore or dive in. But when you learn to float, to trust, to play, then insecurity ceases to be terror. It becomes wonder. It becomes life itself, shimmering in every uncertain moment. And so the invitation stands. Act as if everything always works out for you. Because the truth is, life has always been unfolding exactly as it should. Your task is not to conquer insecurity. Your task is to awaken to the beauty that insecurity makes possible. The dance of life. If you pause for a moment and listen, not with your ears, but with your whole being, you may notice that life is not moving like a march. It is not a straight line, not a race with a finish line waiting in the distance. Life moves like music, like a dance. Alan Watts loved this metaphor. He said, "The meaning of a dance is not to reach the end, but to enjoy every step along the way." Yet most of us are being conditioned to treat life as a destination. From the time we are children, we are told that the point of a game is to get somewhere. First school, then college, then career, then family, then retirement, as if life is a ladder and the only value lies at the top rung. But what happens when we finally get there? When the degree is earned, the job secured, the house bought, the savings accumulated? Do we suddenly find ourselves at peace? Or do we discover, with quiet unease, that the goalposts have shifted, that we are already leaning into the next there, never quite arriving here? Watts would laugh gently at this predicament. He saw that our obsession with progress turns life into a series of delayed gratifications. We live as if happiness is always deferred, just around the corner, always tomorrow. And in that postponement, we miss the only place joy can ever be found, the present. Consider music. When you listen to a symphony, you don't rush to hear the final chord. You savor the melody as it unfolds, the rise and fall, the tension and release. Each note has its own beauty, its own place in the whole. If you skip ahead, you destroy the song. Life is no different. And consider dancing. When you dance, you don't rush across the floor to arrive at a specific spot. The point is not the end. It's the movement itself, the rhythm, the play. If you dance only to arrive, you miss the dance. But isn't this what so many of us are doing with our lives? Watts would remind us, life is not a journey. It is a musical thing, and you are supposed to sing or dance while the music is being played. Now imagine living this way. Imagine treating each moment not as a stepping stone to somewhere else, but as a destination itself. The laughter of a friend, the taste of food, the silence after rain. Each is not a means to an end, but a verse in the song, a step in the dance. This does not mean abandoning goals or ignoring responsibilities. It means shifting how we hold them. A dancer has form, rhythm, direction, but she does not mistake the movement for a race. A musician has notes, structure, tempo, but he does not play only for the final note. Likewise, you can have dreams, projects, ambitions, but let them be part of the play, not change dragging you into the future. To live as if life is a dance is to rediscover playfulness. It is to remember that existence itself is spontaneous. Look at nature. Trees do not grow in straight lines, rivers do not flow in perfect symmetry, stars do not explode on schedule. And yet, the whole pattern is beautiful. Life is improvisation, and so are you. There is a story from Zen about a monk who asked his master, "What is the way?" The master replied, "Walk on." The monk, confused, asked again. The master said, "The way is under your feet." In other words, there is nowhere to get to. The dance is always here, always now, always beneath your feet. But to enter the dance, you must loosen your grip on control. You must be willing to be surprised, to stumble, to sway with the rhythm. The perfection you seek is not found in arriving. It is found in participating. Think of your greatest memories. Rarely are they moments of arrival. They are moments of emotion, laughing until you couldn't breathe, walking barefoot in the grass, sharing silence with someone you love. These are the steps of the dance. And so the invitation is this. Stop living life as though it were a task to be completed. Stop waiting for the grand finale. Instead, let yourself sway to the rhythm of each moment. Sing the song while it is being played. Because when the music ends, as it will for each of us, you will not be measured by how quickly you reach the last note. You will be remembered by how deeply you danced while the song was playing. This is the art of trusting life. To act as if the music knows where it is going, and your only task is to join the dance. Ego, the greatest trick. There is a trickster hiding inside of you, a magician so clever that you rarely notice its sleight of hand. It whispers in your ear, telling you that you are the one who must be protected, defended, polished, and perfected. It says, "This is who you are, your name, your story, your status, your face in the mirror." This trickster is the ego. Alan Watts often described the ego as an illusion, a useful fiction, but a dangerous one when mistaken for the whole of reality. He said, "The ego is simply your symbol of yourself. Just as the word water is not water, the idea of you is not you." And yet, how much of our suffering comes from believing this symbol is real? We treat the ego like a fragile mask that must never crack. We spend our days polishing it, advertising it, comparing it to others. We defend it when criticized, inflate it when praised, mourn it when ignored. And all the while, we forget that behind the mask there is something vaster, freer, indestructible. Consider this. When you were born, you did not know your name. You did not know your nationality, your religion, your resume. You simply were. You breathed. You cried. You gazed at the world with wonder. Only later were layers of identity wrapped around you. I am this. I am not that. Useful for navigating society, yes, but somewhere along the way, we mistook the costume for the self. Watts compared this to mistaking the menu for the meal. The menu points to something real, but it is not the food itself. In the same way, the ego points to aspect of you, but it is not the living, breathing reality of you. And if you try to eat the menu, you will starve. If you try to live as only the ego, you will suffer. This is the greatest trick. The ego convinces you that you are separate from other people, separate from nature, separate from life itself. It whispers, you must fight for survival. You must compete, compare, and prove your worth. And so we live in constant tension, as if existence were a battle. But what happens when the mask slips? In moments of deep laughter, in the ecstasy of music, in the silence of meditation, in the awe of nature, you forget yourself. The ego fades, and suddenly you feel expanded, connected, whole. Those moments are glimpses of your true nature, the self that is not separate at all but woven into the entire fabric of existence. Watts said, "We suffer from a hallucination, from a false and distorted sensation of our own existence as separate from the world." And this hallucination creates fear, fear of death, fear of rejection, fear of insignificance. Because if you are only the ego, then you are fragile, temporary, doomed to vanish. But if you are more than the ego, if you are life itself, playing the role of you, then what is there to fear? Death is not the end, but a costume change. Loss is not annihilation, but transformation. The ego fears impermanence, but life embraces it, because impermanence is how the dance continues. Does this mean the ego is bad? Not at all. Watts did not teach us to destroy the ego, but to see it clearly. The ego is a tool, like a mask an actor wears on stage. It allows us to play the game of being human, to interact, to create, to imagine. The problem comes only when we forget that it is a mask, when we mistake the role for the reality. Imagine an actor so absorbed in his character that he forgets he is acting. He weeps, he rages, he suffers as if the play were life itself. This is how we live when we identify only with the ego. But when the actor remembers, this is a role, then even the drama becomes play. Even the tragedies become art. So how do we unmask the trick? Not by force, not by fighting the ego, because resistance only strengthens it. Instead, by noticing, by watching the thoughts arise, by laughing at the absurdity of our seriousness, by remembering that behind the mask, we are already free. This is why Watts often laughed when speaking of the ego. His laughter was a reminder, don't take yourself so seriously. The self you are protecting is a phantom. Life is not asking you to prove yourself. Life is asking you to be yourself, not the mask, but the living reality behind it. And so the invitation is this. See the ego for what it is, a costume, a character, a wave upon the ocean. Useful, beautiful, but not ultimate. Act as if everything always works out for you, because the one who fears failure is only the mask. The one wearing it, the real you, cannot fail. For how could the universe fail at being what it already is? Play, flow, and letting go. What if the whole purpose of life was not to achieve, not to conquer, not even to understand, but simply to play? Alan Watts often said, the whole point of dancing is a dance. You don't dance in order to arrive at a certain spot on the floor. You dance because the movement itself is a joy. You don't listen to music to hear the final chord. You listen for the sheer delight of the melody unfolding moment by moment. And so it is with life. Yet how often do we treat life as if it were a race? From childhood we are told to hurry toward the next goal, the grades, the degree, the career, the marriage, the retirement plan, always rushing toward a someday where happiness finally lives. But when someday comes, it slips into the past, and the race begins again. This is a tragedy of forgetting play. Watts, with his mischievous grin, would remind us, you are not required to be serious about life. Seriousness has its place, of course, but when it becomes our constant state, we lose the very essence of being alive. Life is not a business transaction. Life is art, and art is play. Consider how children approach the world. They do not wake up worrying about their resume or reputation. They do not play hide and seek in order to win. They play because it is fun, because every moment of discovery is alive. They can turn a cardboard box into a castle, a stick into a sword, a puddle into an ocean. They are creators, not because they must be, but because it delights them. This is the spirit Watts urged us to recover, the spirit of play. But how do we find it in a world that demands so much of us? The answer lies in flow, the state of being fully present, immersed, effortless. Flow happens when you are doing something not for reward, not for status, but because the act itself is fulfilling. It could be painting, writing, dancing, surfing, cooking, even working, if you are engaged with like a musician lost in song. In flow, the ego fades, time dissolves. You stop worrying about outcomes and merge with the act itself. And in that merging, you rediscover the art of life. But to enter flow, you must let go. Let go of the need to control, the obsession with results, the fear of looking foolish. What said, faith is a state of openness or trust. And trust is what allows you to play freely. Imagine trying to dance while constantly worrying about how you look. You would be stiff, awkward, self-conscious. But the moment you surrender, the dance dances itself. This is the art of letting go. And letting go does not mean giving up. It does not mean drifting aimlessly. It means trusting life enough to participate fully, without clinging to outcomes. It means realizing that you don't push the river, you flow with it. That the more you try to force control, the more rigid you become. But the more you trust, the more alive you feel. There's a Zen story of a monk who carried water from the river every day. One day, his pot broke and the water spilled along the path. At first he cursed at his misfortune. But soon, he noticed that wildflowers had begun to grow where the water spilled. What he thought was a mistake became a gift. This is the secret of letting go. When you trust life, even accidents can bloom into beauty. What's love to remind us that existence itself is playful? Nature is extravagant. Look at the billions of stars scattered across space, the endless variety of flowers, the infinite shapes of snowflakes. None of it is efficient or necessary. It is art for its own sake. The cosmos is not a factory, it is a festival. And you, too, are part of that festival. So live as if life were music. Don't just rush to the end of the song. Savor the notes, dance to the rhythm, laugh when the melody surprises you. Act as if everything always works out for you, not because you will always get what you want, but because every twist of the melody is part of the dance. This is a freedom Watts offers, to play, to flow, to let go, to remember that the meaning of life is not hidden at the end of the journey. It is here, in the very act of being. And when you live this way, something magical happens. Fear loosens its grip. Creativity awakens. Relationships soften. Even the struggles of life begin to look less like obstacles and more like the texture of the dance. Because in the end, the universe is not asking you to solve it. The universe is inviting you to play. Conclusion. You began this journey with a radical idea that you are not a separate fragment struggling against the universe, but the very universe itself, disguised as you. Through Alan Watts' eyes, we walk the path of illusions, the illusion of control, the trick of the ego, the fear of insecurity. We've seen that life is not a problem to be solved, but a dance to be lived. We've discovered that when we stop clinging, stop forcing, stop imagining ourselves as lonely captains steering against a storm, something extraordinary happens. Life begins to flow. And here lies the art of trusting life. To act as if everything always works out for you does not mean you will never face hardship, loss, or pain. It means you trust that even these, too, belong. That the broken pot waters the wildflowers. That every note, high or low, belongs to the song. It means you no longer live as a stranger in a hostile world, but as the very world itself, momentarily playing the role of you. Watts often said, you are something the whole universe is doing, in the same way that a wave is something the whole ocean is doing. When you truly feel this, you stop fearing the tide. You rise and fall with it. You laugh at the ego's seriousness. You loosen your grip. You play. So here is a final reflection. You are not walking through life. Life is walking through you. You are not chasing after meaning. You are meaning, unfolding moment by moment. And if you can live from this place, this trust, this play, this letting go, then every day becomes lighter. Every breath becomes music. Every struggle becomes part of the dance. Because you are not a stranger here. You are the universe, playing at being you. And the universe always knows what it is doing. So act as if everything always works out for you. Because in the deepest sense, it already has.